I've been wanting to try a space-based RPG for a while, and I've just bought the Starfinder Beginner Box. And of course, a new game means new miniatures. WizKid's Deep Cut range have some Starfinder figures in vinyl, but when I saw this box from Archon Studio, I just had to have it. Join me for a look inside the box of the Space Goblin War Band for Starfinder. This is the Space Goblin War Band box set for Starfinder. The box contains 6 Space Goblin figures, all in hard styrene plastic. The miniatures are in 32mm scale. The figures are from Archon Studio, a figure manufacturer based in Poland. They do a number of hard plastic Starfinder miniatures, usually a single figure in a box. This makes them a bit more expensive than vinyl figures, and they will require some assembly. I have the Android Mechanic and Drone box set from this range as well. We'll look at that one in another video. But for now, let's look at the Space Goblins. Like goblins in all games, these are cannon fodder for early adventures. I think that's why you get a warband of 6 in the box. In the Starfinder universe, goblins are scavengers and tinkerers. Interestingly, these sculpts go with the stylized large melon-shaped head goblins rather than the more traditional Tolkien-esque beast-like form. This gives them wide, toothy grins. Frankly, they're pretty cute. On the back of the box there's a size guide showing you how small these are compared to a 32mm scale humanoid figure. There's also a picture of the assembled warband. They're armed with a mix of pistols and swords. The swords definitely look like they were fashioned out of scrap materials. You'll also notice the figures lack the bubble space helmet of the Paizo illustrations. That's a shame, but understandable. It would be just too hard to model these as clear parts that didn't have joins or seams. Probably the right call. But enough waffling. Let's look at the plastic. Inside the box is one hard styrene sprue of parts for the figures, as well as an instruction sheet. Most figures are 4 or 5 parts, so this will help figure out what goes where. These guys are tiny. I mainly work with 15mm wargaming figures, but these guys still seem pretty small. Looking at the overall moulding and sculpts, these figures are beautiful. There's a ton of small details, and the mouldings are super crisp and sharp. There's no flash, and mould lines are very light and easily cleaned up. If this is the usual quality of Archon Studio's work, I'm impressed. This guy is the leader, or honcho head as he's described in the instructions. He has some sort of headpiece and an eye patch. He's armed with a sword and pistol and is wearing a backpack. Each figure comes with a base, each with individualized deck plating suitable for the space setting. However, finding the right parts to build each figure is a bit hunt and peck. The parts aren't grouped into any order that I can see. The parts for Mr. Honcho Head here are scattered around, probably to make the most efficient use of the space on the sprue. Next up is this guy, the dual wielder. He's armed with 2 pistols, or at least he will be once we find his arms. The parts do seem to have some locating pins and sockets to aid alignment, but these are pretty small and there's plenty of wiggle room. It's nice they're there, but there's also enough scope here for kit bashing if you want to assemble your figures a bit differently. The remaining 4 figures are zapparators, space goblins armed with a pistol and a sword. Each sculpt is slightly different, which is important when you're going to be using the figures as a group. The swords really do give you the feeling they've been hammered out of pieces of scrap metal. So that's the Space Goblin War Band for Starfinder from Archon Studios. Pricing for a box here in Australia is about $22, quite reasonable for 6 figures. And the quality is top notch. If this is what Archon Studios are producing in plastic, I'm certainly going to be buying more, if I can convince my game group to give Starfinder a try. The downside I can see is that they're multi-part assembly kits. You can't just rip open the box and plonk these on a tabletop. I don't mind that, but I come from a styrene modelling background. You might find that more of a drawback. Plastic kits are best assembled with styrene cement. This is what scale modelers use, and is a solvent that slightly melts the parts to form a bond. You'll find this better for styrene kits than superglue, but keep excess glue away from model surfaces. The solvent will melt the detail if it gets out of the joints and onto the visible surface of the model. Sticky glue fingerprints is a beginner plastic modeler's curse. Ideally, you'll also need side cutters to cut the parts from the sprue, a hobby knife for cleanup, and maybe some fine sandpaper or emery boards for very fine cleanup. The other issue is being separate parts might make the arms and so on prone to coming off if handled roughly. Not usually an issue, but just be aware of this during play. Plus, hard styrene plastic is less flexible than vinyl, so there's a higher risk of parts breakage if parts are stressed or bent. One of the zapparators also has a single point of contact with his base. This might make him a little bit fragile for tabletop use. The foot joint to the base might need pinning. None of this should put you off hard plastic. It holds small detail better, and these should end up being really striking miniatures for your game. Anyway, that's our sneak peek inside the Space Goblin War Band box set. I love them. They look like a great product if you're a Starfinder GM. I can't wait to build and paint mine. Thanks for watching. See you next time.